From Tech TV, welcome to Panorama. I'm your hostess, Qada Hamadani. Today I would like to welcome His Excellency Mr. Ahdulhamid Alfailakawi, the Ambassador of the States of Kuwait. Welcome, Mr. Ahdulhamid.
Thank you.
The first question, is Kuwait interested in growing in Canada?
Yes, indeed. Let me say that I consider myself lucky. Fortunately, we don't have any essential problems between Canada and Kuwait that I work on or I waste my time in solving. In fact, we exchange a very good kind of relationship on the political front, militarily, I would say, economically, you know, even I would say that we have hundreds of students, like girls and boys, are studying here in Canada, all over, I mean, from Halifax to BC. The Kuwaiti people would not forget the Canadian stand when Kuwait was invaded by the Iraqi troops in 1990. I would say that the Kuwaiti sovereign fund has sizable investments here in Canada. The private sector does as well. And Kuwait is very interested in investing in the oil sector, mainly in Alberta province. I think they have invested like more than $5 billion until now, and they are still in the process. I think they are doing well. But I would be frank with you, Ghada. We have one weakness in our economic relationship, that the commercial bilateral exchange is not up to our ambitions. Okay. You know, it's like 300 millions, which is too less. And that's why I've been working, and finally, we say in Arabic, Alhamdulillah, we were able to have what we called Kuwait-Canada Economic Forum. It was held in Toronto last week, like April 8th. And Kuwait was represented in a heavy way, like 9 different ministries and area and authority were represented, and their counterparts from Canada. The delegation was headed by the Kuwaiti Finance Minister, Mr. Naif Al-Hajraf, and Canada was represented by His Excellency Minister Morneau, and we had a long discussion, then bilateral meeting, and probably you know about the forum itself, that there was a variety of views in all the economic and investment aspects. So we hope that this would be a good start, that both sides can explore the opportunities in both the countries, Canada and Kuwait.
Mr. Ambassador, how do you read President Donald Trump's statement in regards to Golan Heights?
As you might know, that Kuwait is a member of the Security Council now. It has been elected like a year ago. So we consider ourselves the voice of the Arab world in the Security Council. Openly, we are opposing this step. We do believe that Golan Heights are Syrian soil, and this goes along with all the, I would say, the international resolutions and the international law as well. So it is very clear that we are against this step.
Okay. So why Gulf countries are feuding with Qatar?
Well, there are some differences between Qatar from one side, and Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, and Egypt from the other side. Kuwait was very clear on this issue, and we are mediating between the two parties. We had what we can call a roadmap. It is still on the table, and we are convinced that eventually all the parties will come along, and because we are convinced that the common interest would be the aim of all the parties. You might know that the idea of creating GCC as an organization, Gulf Cooperation Council, was a Kuwaiti suggestion at that time in late 70s of the last century, and it materialized in 1980. So it is really significant to us in Kuwait to keep up this successful organization together.
What role Kuwait is playing in, it's like Arab Rise and the whole things like what's happening in the region right now?
Well, Kuwait is well known by its clear policy, by not interfering in the internal issues of any Arabic or any, by this matter, any country in the world. We respect the choices of the people, and we try to help them even when things in these countries are settled.
What's Kuwait's stand in regards to Israel in the region?
Well, we don't exchange any kind of relationship with Israel, and the Kuwaiti official stand is that Kuwait would be the last Arabic country which might normalize its relationship with Israel.
Is there a reason why?
Well, you know that probably the Palestinian Revolution even has been created in Kuwait in 1965. So we do believe in the Palestinian issue. We do believe that Israel should withdraw from Gaza and the West Bank. We do believe that a two-state solution should be the real solution in the Middle East to reach peace. Until now, we don't foresee this is materializing.
So the proxy war between Saudi Arabia and Iran, how do you see it affecting the region?
We are very clear with our policy towards Iran. There was a GCC resolution. They asked Kuwait to go through a dialogue between the GCC and Iran. We are still in Kuwait willing to do so. We are looking for a good relationship in Kuwait and in GCC, including Saudi Arabia. Looking for a good relationship with Iran, and we always call Iran not to intervene in the internal issues of our countries.
So did you always want to become an ambassador?
Okay. That was my dream since I was very young. So after high school, I chose to study political science. Yes.
Where in Kuwait?
In Kuwait, Kuwait University.
And so how did you become an ambassador?
Well, as you probably know, I'm a career diplomat. So I was climbing the stairs like so many others, step by step. After I finished my school, I applied for the foreign ministry in Kuwait, and luckily I was at that time one of very few boys, I would call them, that chosen to join the diplomatic service. So, and I started by being a diplomatic attaché, like everybody, and then I graduated to a third secretary, second secretary, first secretary, a counselor, and then I luckily became an ambassador.
Okay, so what is the biggest challenge you've faced since you become an ambassador?
Okay, I always say that experience is something that you build up, you accumulate, you know. The experience itself is a big challenge, you know. But if your question is what was the biggest challenge while I was a diplomat, I would say that when my country was invaded in 1990. I used to be a diplomat in our embassy in Washington at that time. And the best moment in my life and every Kuwaiti's life is when President George Bush, the father, has announced that Kuwait has been liberated.
So, well, Kuwait and Iraq have long relationships, and how that invasion affected those, this relationship, and now, it's like with the new regime in Iraq, so how Kuwait deals with Iraq and Iraqis?
Well, at times some nations would be, I don't know if I can call it cursed, with some non-stabilized leaders. A guy like Saddam Hussein, that since he joined office, he took his country from a war to another. He started with the Kurds in the north, Halabja. Then he fought with Iran for 8 years. Then he had a huge army, and he was afraid what to do with this army. Then he wanted to keep this army busy. Then he asked them to go to Kuwait.
And how is the relation right now with Iraq?
No, we exchange a very good relationship with the Iraqis. We do believe that stability in Iraq is very important to all of us in that part of the world. In fact, Kuwait has hosted an international conference last year to reconstruct Iraq. So Kuwait has hosted the conference, and Kuwait has donated to this conference. And again, we do believe that the stability of Iraq and all other countries in the region is a genuine, it has a genuine importance for our people's future.
Mr. Ambassador, what has been the best moment of your career so far?
Probably, I mentioned it earlier, that when my country was liberated in 26th of February 1991. That was a non-forgettable moment in each and every Kuwaiti's life.
So how do you like your staying in Canada?
Oh, I love it. Frankly, Ghada. I do love it. It's a beautiful country. As I said earlier, we exchange an excellent kind of relationship with Canada. And I would say that all the facilities are there. It's significant to emphasize that people of Canada are so friendly and so open, and I would say so tolerant.
Mr. Ambassador, what countries you've served at?
Well, I joined the Foreign Service in 1982. In 1983, I joined our embassy in Beijing, China, for like 3 years. After that, I joined our embassy in Washington, D.C. In the early 80s, there was this huge debate in China about openness and, so it was a big step when I moved to Washington. Different style of life altogether. I served in our embassy in Washington for like 6 years. And as probably I have mentioned earlier, Kuwait was invaded at that time and liberated.
Yeah.
Thank God. From Washington, I moved to New Delhi, India. See, it's all like cultural shocks, you know.
Yeah.
China, the States, India, and from India I moved to Vienna, Austria, and my first post as a head of mission, as an ambassador, was in Dakar, Senegal. And after Senegal, I moved to Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, and from Malaysia to Tunisia, Tunis, and from Tunisia to Hungary. And after Hungary, I was chosen to be the assistant to the Minister of Foreign Affairs for Arabic Affairs. After that, here am I. I'm in Ottawa, Canada.
And how is this, you know, it's like you're moving a lot, how this affects your family life? How are they adapting to?
Well, okay, I would say that all diplomats know that this is a part of what we call it a tax we need to pay. So the bright aspect of it is that kids will be open-minded, seeing, coinciding with several cultures, but the other side of it is that the feeling of stability won't be there at times, because you change educational systems, kids might get confused, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, if you could give a piece of advice to people interested in becoming ambassadors, what would it be?
Obviously, before somebody becomes an ambassador, he should or she should struggle. I mean, there is a big stairs, I would call it, that they need to climb. So while climbing, they need to be patient, open-minded, have the ability to adjust and to adapt. You know, all diplomats might be sent to hard posting, what we call, or at times to posts that wars might occur or taking place at. So serving your country wherever they send you and whenever they do, and under all the circumstances. So you would add to what I said, patience.
Mr. Ambassador, last word to Canadian and North American audience. What would you like to say?
Well, I would say that I'm happy that this is my second time to serve in North America. I served in the States for like 6 years, as I mentioned earlier. And I'm happy to say that I'm in Canada for more than 3 years now. I would say that I'm happy to deal with them. The people here are very open-minded, very friendly, very warm, unlike their kind of weather in winter. They have very advanced educational and health systems, you know. So I would say keep things up.
Okay. Mr. Ambassador, it was a great pleasure having you here with us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Pleasure is mine.
Wish you all the best here. Thank you for watching, and up until next time, have a good night.